Welcome back, Forex fans. It is Rob here again with Galactic Civilizations 4, and as I noted before, I wanted to take this last episode to provide my initial critical thoughts, critical feedback on the alpha as it is now. So it is, as you can see here, 0.40 alpha, so I imagine that we are still like 6 major iterations away from being done with this game. And, the version number doesn't always necessarily, matter. They don't really usually iterate on version numbers to show that this is a significant step forward or anything like that until after 1.0 normally. But with 0.40, I kind of get the impression that that means they're like 40% way, of the way done with this game. And that's because they have a 2022 release date, and I expect them to run the alpha or beta for about a year, which is kind of the thing that Epic does, right? So I imagine we're about a year to maybe even a year and a half away from the actual 1.0 release of this game. And that's actually a really good thing, and also a bit surprising, to be honest, because there's a lot of things that this game is already doing really well. So it kind of seems like maybe 1.0 isn't as far away as a year from here, but I also am okay with that too. I think that this game could be the best game Stardock's ever made. So with that, I want to play a bit, and as I'm playing and kind of thinking about things, I want to kind of go over the things that I enjoy the most about this game so far in 0.40 alpha form, what I think are going to be hurdles for the dev team, and maybe some of the things that aren't really working for me right now, and I hope that something could be done to address those issues. First things first, actually, it's perfect that this came up, because I'm not sure that I like this. I'm not sure I like research being done the way it's done here, because for me, and I'm hoping this is something that was brought up in an interview that we had, a recent interview on our channel and through our podcast with Brad Wardell, and he was saying that I'd mentioned that I'd hoped that the delivery of these cards would be weighted for each of the civilizations based on their kind of strengths and weaknesses, what they would normally kind of, gear towards. Much like Sword of the Stars, where the research tree was kind of blind. It was always uniquely made, but there were certain technologies that would appear more often for specific races. And I'm hoping that's the case with this one. I'm also hoping that there'll be unique race research techs, right? So I think that, if I'm playing the humans, maybe there is a unique modifier that'll come up or a unique tech that will come up that will maybe add to my ability to explore or my ability to become diplomatic. And I also want to see very rare techs. Like right now, the technology tree, I've never seen anything that I've never seen in a game. I've always seen the same cards come up every game. And in a rare deal of the cards here, I want to see very rare techs, just like Stellaris, because quite frankly, this is clearly on one level influenced by Stellaris, maybe on another level influenced by Old World and a few other games that have tried this card thing. And Stellaris, I think, does it the best, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I'm not a huge fan of Stellaris, but Stellaris does it best in that you can occasionally roll a really rare tech that is going to put you ahead, or you'll find a technology out as you explore that you'll be able to research and incorporate into your abilities, and that really provides a lot of replayability, and that doesn't exist here at all. So I'm hoping that we see rare techs. I'm hoping we see very rare techs and extraordinarily rare techs, and even if they're color coordinated in that way, what I'm saying, like epic or rare or legendary text, something like that, but something that you may only stumble upon once or twice in a game, but can dramatically change things for you if you get it, if you're lucky enough to get it. So I like that. I like that idea. I think that the idea of finding things throughout your exploration and then being able to research those also is important. And what I was saying about it before is that Brad was actually okay or interested in the idea of weighting certain techs towards a particular faction. So if I am the humans and I want to, play the exploration and diplomatic playstyle, then you're more likely to get exploration and diplomatic techs. Makes sense to me. We'll see if that happens. I'm hoping that that's going to happen. I'm also hoping that eventually research candidates get a specific race tech slot where there is that particular weighted tech that will show up in those particular slots. As it is, it's always the same, and that's a little disappointing, to be honest. I don't feel like there's ever been a time where I'm like, oh man, I got a technology that I've never seen before. It never happens. So I'm hoping that eventually does. I'm hoping that they do something with that. But I also really want this tech tree to show up because I want to be able to see where I'm going, and I do want to know where things line up. Old World does this really well because you can still see the tech tree, but you're only given a choice of a few. I think it's actually 5 as well. And you're able to see, kind of plan out where you might want to go. Like if I knew that Ministry of Health led to another technology, it might be that I took this time. And then eventually maybe the certain technology that I'm looking for would actually get dealt in a future setting, in a future dealing of cards. So let's go ahead and take quantum computing. Actually, we'll do on the Ministry of Health. Let's do that. Because I want to come over here and I want to talk about people for 2, all right? So there's a few things that I want to talk about with this. I think, it's a bit weird that I can run into a Taurian civilian that shows up in this game when I've never met the Taurians, and there's little to do about it. There's no, oh wow, look, we've met the Taurians. It was just like in this event's case that I had last episode. Yeah, last episode. It was just like, oh yeah, some Taurians showed up to your planet. And they want to build something, and there was no hey, wow, we've met these people, and they called themselves the Taurians, and there was none of that. It just seemed very, very kind of, almost unimmersive, right? It just kind of, they washed all that out and said, all right, well, here's these things that you guys should know about. Whereas, I believe that it's more immersive, more fun, more exciting to have some sort of backstory, or a quick little wow, hey, these strange alien beings showed up. They call themselves the Taurians, and we knew we weren't alone in this universe, but here they are, and they really want our help building a research building or whatever it was they wanted. And that would make the event much cooler, much more fun, much more immersive. So with that, though, I think that the idea that they have with the hopes of bringing drama to the game through these characters is a good idea. And I look forward to, maybe Pranav Krang becoming an issue to me at one point, or having some, revolts, or maybe some character drama between 2 different characters. But I also don't want that to be too overwhelming, because this isn't supposed to be Crusader Kings in space. I do like the idea of having personalities, because the idea of having a bunch of characters like this with no personality seems weird and would feel unimmersive, but at the same time, I don't want them to go the Old World or Crusader Kings route where they're more of the story than the game is. And I think that is the case with Old World. Although Old World has a very, very strong foundation in strategy, the real fun of that, in my opinion, comes from the way that the characters interact and some of the stuff goes down like that, and how you have to kind of balance families and stuff like that. Whereas this game could get drowned out, and I think, if that became the case, and I don't want that to happen. I really don't. I want there to be some fun things that pop up as a result, but I don't want them to overwhelm you or overwhelm the game. So, with that, here we have Camille Ogenum, right? She's not very loyal to me, so it would make sense. Loyalty is going to have to play some sort of role in this game. If I place her as a governor here, she might become more loyal if I place her somewhere nice, right? I placed her at Achilles. But if I place her on something like Rusum, she may not like me very much. And she may end up deciding that she wanted to be her own thing. A great interview we just did on the channel was with an interview called Todd. He's making a game called Falling Frontier, and he talked about how when any civilization starts to group out and space out, they start to develop their own identity based on maybe their conditions, their life, and if you can imagine the Expanse, right? The Expanse has 3 different quote unquote cultures. You have Earth culture, you have Martian culture, and you have the Belters culture. And they became that way because they all had to deal with different circumstances that kind of brought them together. So I could imagine there being issues with, like if I end up branching out, I take another sector, I can imagine there being issues keeping another sector under our fold because they're starting to develop their own personality, right? Their own culture, their own insights on how the galaxy is. And there should be some management of that. Not too much, because I don't like there to be too much. I really don't. I think Stellaris has gotten to a point where it's really good with its factions, because it doesn't feel like I'm spending too much time having to deal with them. But there are considerations to be made when it comes to keeping our factions happy in that game. And I think that's something that we need to do. And Old World does the same thing too. There's a lot of considerations to making your families happy, keeping your families happy. So that kind of stuff could really be a really cool mechanic if done right, and if it keeps the micromanagement from being too overwhelming. So I'm excited about the leaders. I think that they could play a really cool part in this game, and I look forward to, it would be great if right now I had the ability to recruit. Oh, I do. Like, let's say I took the dungeon, right? And maybe he had a higher social skill, and I actually applied him as a diplomat. And maybe instead of him working with me, he works against me because he's going to be more loyal to his dungeon people. So that wouldn't make sense to me, right? At one level, maybe if you got the right dungeon, you could send him to the Dungeon Empire, and it would be perfect because you are sending someone of their own kind to keep things good with you. But if you send somebody there that has a low loyalty, maybe they're like, why would I work for you when I'm working with my own people? And that would be something that I'd need to consider, right? Those kind of things, awesome for immersion, awesome for gameplay, and would excite me. So I'm going to go ahead and assign. So what's okay, social has to be good, right? We'll see it. Forgot what it is that, I think it's this one. Yeah, social skill is important for diplomats. So we're going to go ahead and send her to the Baratech Grove. And what happens is they're going to actually like us more. So she's going to work on them enjoying our presence a bit more, and we will continue on with our game here. Another thing I want to talk about, and something that I think is probably the biggest gameplay change from Galactic Civilizations 3, is the core world and feeder world system, which I think is brilliant because of the way they've implemented it. It could have been a game that really kind of diverged too far from the series formula and would have really messed up people and probably alienated a lot of the fan base. But what they did was really smart, honestly. They started this core world, feeder world system, but you're in control of how many core worlds you have. If you wanted to make every world a core world, you could. God help you, because the micromanagement of that would be awful. But you could do it, and that would be insane. And, if that's something you enjoy, you like micromanagement, more power to you. That'd be great. But for me, somebody like me, I think, the ability to have one core world per sector, or maybe one or two core worlds per sector, is really great, because something that the 4X genre really suffers from is micromanagement in the mid to late game as you grow, as you become more wide. And if they can make sure that you can play tall, I'm going to go ahead and hold this. I'm going to see what this is all about. So you give Xeno Research, Xenobiology. No, we're going to go ahead and reject that. We're going to talk about diplomacy in a second. But yeah, so the idea that you can play a game that could be tall, that could be reliant on a few core worlds, is important to me, because I think that that's going to really help the end game feel more fun, more manageable, and faster. And that's something that really keeps me from finishing most 4X games, is how bogged down I start to feel with micromanaging my cities and having to make moves every turn with every 472 ships. The idea here in this game will not only be that you can play tall with fewer core worlds, but from what I understand too, that fleets are going to be a bigger issue too, because you're going to be able to use your citizens to create fleets and admirals. So that's also going to be something where there's fewer ships, there's fewer units to be moving around, which will again cut down on micromanagement. I think that's really important. And again, the only reason this system is going to work and it's not going to alienate the fan base is because you can do that if you want. You could take every one of your planets and core them out if you want to. And it'll be expensive. I mean, you need money for them, right? But you could do it. And if you want to micromanage the way every single planet goes, so be it. And maybe there's a viable strategy to that. So that'll be one of the hurdles that I was talking about earlier that I wanted to discuss. The hurdle will be making sure that both gameplay styles are viable and powerful enough, because if you let one of the other be too powerful or too viable, then unfortunately that's the way everybody's going to need to play in order to be good at this game, and that's not fun. Let's go to diplomacy, because I think, first of all, I just want to end off by saying the core world feeder world system is brilliant simply because there's options, and also because I think that it's going to cut down on something that I hate about 4X games, and I'm a huge 4X fan, so I can say that. Let's come back to diplomacy. All right, so diplomacy is what I could describe as, it is leveled off, right? It's basically not innovative at all, and it hasn't been for some time. And I think that the problem with that is, oh, wow, I didn't know that these guys could do this. The Galactic Grove starts with the ability to deploy spores to 3 dead worlds to restore life. Each time a new culture trait is gained, another charge is earned. That's amazing, and I really like that. But let's go to the actual diplomacy. First of all, I was going to talk about racial asymmetry, and I already see some of it, so it's amazing if that's the way it's going to be. Intuitive, so it's intuitive, starts with free research and access to xenoanthropology technologies. Let's see what these guys got. Slavers gain the ability to enslave your citizens, reducing their approval of production and food consumption, but they never protest. Okay, so they clearly expect there to be protests and revolts. And again, I like that this is the case, right? So Conquerors receives 2,500 credits, misspell, and 10% approval for 25 turns after conquering a planet. That is insane. I'm hoping conquering a planet is like a core world and not every world, because you could make a lot of money quickly doing that, and that would be overpowered. But let's stop digressing here for a second and talk about diplomacy, because like I said, I feel like it's kind of stuck in this weird barter table rut that even Soren Johnson is one of my favorite developers and favorite designers, and he himself on our podcast about Old World talked about the rut that 4X games have learned to kind of sit in, because they stick with this diplomacy system that was cool for a minute back when like Civilization 4 came out, but now is just it's not fun. There's nothing cool about this, right? I pull it up. Don't waste my time with meaningless words, scum. Make this worth my time. Well, let's come out of it for a second, because that music gets really loud for a second. And to me, that's just not immersive, right? I mean, okay, he says a couple things that I think Junjin would say, but like, I don't feel like there's any real interaction with them other than like to say, hey, here's some stuff I want, here's some stuff you want, let's do this. Or, okay, let's time to go to war, or let's make a trade treaty. I really think that characters need to play a role in this, and that there needs to be some sort of like interracial, interspecies like drama, right? Like, I need to have my Junjin characters, you know, maybe make things worse or better for me when it comes to my relations with other races. And that's also something I'd pull from Old World. It's something that you can, like, it would be weird, but like if you could arrange marriages, you know, or arrange some sort of like political, like, I mean, marriage, sure, why not? Like, marry a human and a Baratok Grove off. I don't know. Like, do something. I guess they're Baratoks. They're the Baratok Grove and they're Baratoks. I don't know. But anyways, like, there just needs to be more in the way of immersion in that respect. I think that, you know, a lot of my interactions with other species should be mainly flavor text revolving around our current situation, our current climate, our current relationship, and less about like, what do you have and what can I get from you? Like, or or vice versa. Like, what do they have, and what do they want from me? So, I'm a little bit tired of the barter table type diplomacy system, and I'm hoping that they can figure out ways to make this a little bit more immersive, since they do have the characters and they do have the ability to make it feel more dynamic and less of a like, this is what you get and this is what I get, the end, and then some 2 lines worth of flavor text. There could be much more, especially with the time they have. And the writers they have too. They have plenty of great writers. So anyway, let's keep playing. We'll see what else I can come up with that I want to provide. It's right off the bat, I've got something else. I believe the anomalies, there's too many of them. I don't think that I should have to have a report or some sort of event for every single one of them. It's cool to have them for some of them, absolutely. But for every single one of them starts to get really old, especially when you have 4 or 5 of these guys going around. You might have 3 or 4 events every turn. And that's only in the very beginning. Once we get to the point where we're, colonizing everywhere, that's going to be really time consuming. So I'm hoping that they either make those choices less frequent and, keep the same amount of anomalies, or reduce the amount of anomalies as an average, or as the base level of anomalies spread throughout the system, so that there's not 42 events popping up every time. That gets old. And that's something that Old World had a hard time with until recently. So we don't need that. One other thing is, I'd like to see the background, and I'm not sure. Let me double check this for a second. I'm pretty sure I don't have another core world. I can't tell you that. But I'm pretty sure the core worlds all look the same, regardless of whether or not, they're Terran planets or whatnot. And the background should definitely change based on the type of planet. I have a feeling that's going to happen. I really don't think it's not huge either. It's not a big thing, but as I'm here and I remember that every core world looks the same, I'm pretty darn sure of it. I'm almost 90. Unless they've changed it in the last build, I'm pretty sure I've always stared at the same screen regardless of the core world. And, I do like this, though, that there's a show of colonies that feed into this planet. That's brand new, and I like it. So I'm hoping that the actual demonstration, or I should say representation of the planet that you've colonized, or that you've made a core world, looks different depending on the planet type. All right, so we built... I played ahead, so I actually built this hex here, and I'm going to place this coordination beacon here. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to place this capital mainframe here to gain bonuses from these 2 here. So it should actually be +2 to research, which is great. So it's going to gain us a 20% bonus to research plus 5%. So 25% bonus to research, which is pretty darn significant. So good placement, right? I'm super smart. All right, something I didn't talk about too much about in the last episodes is the ship upgrade system. Love it. I think it's great. It might get a little out of control, so I'm hoping that there's going to be ways to maybe stymie that a little bit. It's a balance issue, right? I don't want to have to level up ships every turn. Again, if they're trying to make this game something that can be less micro and more macro, then my need to level up my ships every 5 turns is going to be a little tiresome when there's 20 ships out there or 20 fleets out there and they're leveling up every turn. So I'm hoping that they can figure out maybe level 10 could be a max level, and on the way up there, maybe the experience points requirements are a little bit, spread out a little bit, so that I'm not... we're 50 turns in and this one's already level 7. If level 10 is the max, and I think it might be, then we're almost already maxed out with this thing. So let's go ahead and take the antimatter warhead. We have some antimatter that provided a boost to our missile attack, which is good. Here we go with our barter system, our trade. So we get starbase modules, we give credits in xenobiology. Yeah, I'll take that actually. And we can then start to build modules here. So energy magnification or inertial dampeners. So kinetic attack would increase here. Let's go ahead and do that. We can also do that too. Let's do it. Especially since there was a space monster up here, so... Alright, there's another thing too I want to talk about. So something that people are actually not realizing as they play through the beta is that you can change your workers, their specializations here, and you need to actually change them based on a bunch of different things. Wow, so I don't think I've ever realized that there was a cleric before. But, like, yeah, if you want soldiers, you're going to need soldiering, or soldiers. I mean, you're going to need to actually change their professions here. So these two are researchers because they came here as researchers. But if I really wanted to make this planet, like, you know, maybe a completely science-based, I could change them all to science. Here, we actually need, in order to make a trade happen between myself and, or like a trade route between myself and another alien race, I need to actually make one of these guys a trader, which provides a trade license. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll build a trader. A freighter, sorry. Alright, let's go through the other systems before I wrap up. I do want to keep playing this game, so I'm going to keep playing. I didn't expect to, and I was thinking that maybe you know, a few episodes would be enough, but there seems to be quite a bit of demand for Galactic Civilizations 4 gameplay, so I'm happy to provide. Let's talk about the ideology screen. I think it's a big improvement over the former ideology system. I like that there's much more, there's many more choices, there's much more room. I don't have to sell myself on a particular route, but I do think that there needs to be very clear bonuses, malices for developing more, you know, focus in a particular side, right? Like here, trust. What does trust mean, right? I don't know what that means. I don't even know what this will do. If this leads to different events, cool. Let me know that. But maybe, you know, if there's one thing I think that needs to be balanced really, really, really importantly, is that right now control is really important, right? So if we go to our executive orders, all these are used by exerting control, using your control, right? But control comes from being authoritarian and collectivist. So if you don't go the authoritarian and collectivist route with your ideology, you don't get as many control points. So help me understand why I wouldn't right now. Because right now, first of all, libertist doesn't exactly, it's not a word. Libertarian is probably a better word for this. In fact, it's actually the way that the political spectrum chart or political spectrum test would word it. So libertarian's a better word here, but the point is though that help me understand why I would choose anything other than collectivist and authoritative if those are the ways I could get control. There needs to be some sort of bonus. So I do like the ideology tree because there's a lot of cool things that you can choose from, and a lot of them are hard to actually choose from because I took the 10% approval for my first 5 planets because my approval rating was low. But moving forward, I mean, double ship experience, plus 10 control, plus 1 ship moves. I mean, these are all good. I'm not sure about plus 10 control. Or is that... Wait, I thought I saw... Yeah, plus 10 control. I mean, I think that's... Hopefully that's plus 10 control. I don't know. I don't think it's plus 10 control per turn, but that's really not that great. So maybe that would be something I would probably, you know, come back to and maybe provide a better bonus for. But like, there's just other things, right? Free colony ship's a big deal. Negative 10% crime, as that becomes an issue with your decay and stuff from other feeder planets. That's a good thing. That's a good choice. So the actual tree itself is pretty good. Just help me understand why I'm going in any direction. What's the benefit of doing any direction other than to develop control, which is beneficial and doesn't seem to be like there doesn't seem to be any offset for using more control. So maybe the more control I have, the more people are unhappy. But I don't think that's really the case. Like here, if I use a Galactic Festival, my tourism goes up. It only costs 10 control, and there's no negative effects. So right now, as it stands, I'd imagine collectivism and authoritativism, I don't know, being authoritative and collectivist is your best bet, because you're going to gain more control that way. And then, all right, so if there's anything else, okay, I went over the executive orders. I think that's a good system, but it probably needs a lot more. I mean, right now, this is a decent little selection, but give me like 5 times that many, please. And the rest of it, I think I've talked about at some level. So I also would like to draw attention to the strategic resources part of the game. I think it's done really well. Food is always an issue, so I'm not sure if it's balanced correctly, because right now I have a planet, Lazy World, which is developing 12 food per turn. And of course, there is going to be some decay. So it's about 20%, which is roughly 1/5. So roughly like 2 of those, maybe 3, are being lost on their way to Earth. By the way, I'd really like to see a number for that. Maybe I can somehow. I mean, I could tell how much is coming in, but I don't really see how much is being lost by numbers. But yeah, so I mean, food's always been an issue, even when you have planets that produce a lot of food. It seems like I have 24.6 food. I guess I might have that many. Okay, I have 29 citizens. So that's understandable. So that's why we're low on food. I'd imagine 1 citizen roughly equates to 1 food per turn. So, but the thing is too, food's really hard to get. It's really hard to grab. So, you know, a lot of it comes from your core worlds that you end up developing agricultural districts on, and you can't do them again, another thing that you need to balance, right? Like, if it's better to just make a bunch of core worlds that have a bunch of agricultural districts, then I don't know. So I think that's their biggest hurdle, right? Is there's a lot of balance to be considered and had, and every playstyle needs to be viable, especially with the systems they have in place. And some of the stuff that they're planning on instituting with regards to citizens and stuff like that need to be balanced to prevent the player from feeling overwhelmed, and to prevent the player from feeling like they're micromanaging things, but also provide some sort of story and, you know, fun conflict, and also a little bit of drama, right? A little bit of space opera drama that would be fun. So that's it from now. I think that for the most part, this game is taking everything that Galactic Civilizations 3 did with all of its expansions and made it better. You know, like even active use skills that came with, you know, one of the later expansion packs. I mean, the executive orders was basically another thing in one of the expansion packs. I forgot all of them. I'm not going to try to remember their exact gameplay mechanic names, but all these have been, you know, at some way or form in Galactic Civilizations 3 after the initial game, which is pretty cool to see them being implemented in the base game of Galactic Civilizations 4. I mean, here, even the Galactic Bazaar is coming soon. And that was definitely, I mean, that was Mercenaries, or, you know, whatever that expansion pack was called, that was pretty new, pretty early on in the game. You know, so these are all great things. These are all really exciting things. The main concerns I have are just keeping the things balanced so that every gameplay style is fun, and that the diplomacy is kind of boring, and it shouldn't be, because they have the ability to use those characters to make it more exciting and interesting. And other than that, I think they have the right path. I think that, like, a lot of the things that they were discussing, that Brad was discussing in the interview we had with him, make the game sound like it's gonna be great. In fact, it's already really good, which is insane because it's an alpha stage. But I do think a lot of it's been carried over from Galactic Civilizations 3, made better, so it's kind of hard to screw up a game that was already good, that you brought over and just made some of the gameplay mechanics a bit more refined, a bit better. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I've kind of gone over the gameplay mechanics that I have either felt pretty inspired by, or pretty, you know, I think that they're on the right track. And then the one right now that's really getting me is diplomacy, because I feel like it's just not moving forward at all. So those are the things that strike me, that have really kind of been my focus as I've played through the alpha so far. I've got about 25 hours with it now. Really enjoy it. I can't wait for the other races, because I'm not someone who really enjoys playing as the humans all the time. And I also like the idea that they are implementing some pretty wild asymmetry with that. I mean, like, the fact that the Grove can send spores to dead planets freaking amazing. I love it. So yeah, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you think could be something that they need to work on or be considerate of as they move forward. I mean, they have a year. That's about what I'm thinking, right? They have a year to take this game, which is already good, and make it better. And of course, they have to implement some things, right? They still have this policies thing that they haven't done yet, Galactic achievements, which I'm excited about, and then the Galactic Bazaar, which, you know, it is what it is. I don't really care too much about that, but those are all things that still need to actually be implemented, and then the citizens themselves need to have some sort of, you know, life to them. But other than that, I mean, the gameplay systems are all pretty much there, so it's great stuff. I'm really excited. I hope you are too, because I think this is Starduck's best alpha period. There's not even a doubt in my mind that the state at which this game is right now is better than any alpha I've played of Starduck's ever. And I've played almost all of them, any of the big ones for me, especially the 4X ones. And that excites me, because if they could just iterate on this and make it a better game, then what could go wrong? And I'm knocking on wood right now to make sure that I haven't jinxed anything. If you want me to, leave me a comment below and let me know that you want me to keep playing, because I will. I enjoy this. I don't mind videotaping it as I play it. I've got a little fleet here of 5. I was going to see if I could take out this thing down here, but it looks like even a fleet of 5 isn't remotely... Oh, that's because one of them is a probe. So we will actually explore with that probe there. Oh, no. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, that's fine, actually. We'll leave them to do their thing, and I'll build an actual fleet worth something, worth its salt, and make a fleet capable of taking this space monster out, so I could maybe take that planet and, I don't know, just feel a little more safe here. So, alright guys, well, I hope you've enjoyed this. This, again, was my initial critical thoughts on the game. A lot of it could just be thought of as, like, hopes and dreams and some hopeful, you know, input onto how the game is right now and what I think the game could benefit from. But really, it's so early that, you know, all this could change. It could turn into a bad game, I guess. I mean, it's so early that it could, but I just have a serious doubt about that. They've got some of the greatest 4X developers behind this right now. So, I mean, Brad Wardell and Derek Paxton know exactly what they're doing. They've done very good jobs before. And Carrie was one of the lead, if not the lead developer of Galactic Civilizations 2. So you're talking about people, or lead programmer, I'm sorry. So you're talking about 3 people that know really, really well how to make a good 4X game. So I have faith. All right. Well, until next time, like I said, leave a comment below or just a like or anything to let me know that you want me to keep playing, and I will. But until next time, this is Rob from eXplore. Keep exploring.